pounds. It weighs about 1,000. So, we call it a 6-pound gun because it fires a 6-pound cannonball. You'd back that up about 2 pounds of gunpowder. There we go. So, you'd have a 6-pound cannonball backed up by 2 pounds of gunpowder. That's a 3-to-1 ratio. Works for every other piece of artillery in the British Army. This is actually a baseball backed up by some rice, but there you go. So, you can hand that round. It's a good tactile demonstration. But is the lift just foobar?
Foobar.
All right.
Therefore, I will solve and fix it later on.
All right. Sorry about that, sir. All right. So, I also said this is a field cannon, which means it belongs where?
On the ground.
In the field. In fact, if we were to fire it up here, we'd all be suicidal idiots. Because this thing kicks back about 10 to 15 feet. And normally I'd measure it, but I've done this enough times that I can tell you folks, this is 15 feet away from where it is now. How safe do you folks feel? Not very. Now, you folks on the sides are doing all right, aren't you? Well, no, because this will go left, this will go right. Heck, it might hit a whole flip over and blow up and kill us all. So, we don't fire a cannonball from this thing. It's not going to kick back that far. Don't worry. But that's why you don't fire these things up here. In fact, you're instead supposed to fire these. These are on what are called garrison or navy trucks. You can see that they're wider, they're heavier, they can handle the recoil better. They've got these 4 smaller wheels for stability. And if we had these rigged properly, we'd have big, thick hemp ropes about that wide, tied to a pulley system here on the wall, and then tied around this knobby bit here called the cascabel. Now, when this thing fires, it's going to kick back 3 to 5 feet, then the ropes will catch it. That gives you and a team of 6 to 8 men room enough to reload it, haul it back into position, and fire it again. Now, here on the garrison, we can be a bit lax with how much we tie up these cannons, but on a ship, you need those tied up at all times. Who knows why?
The waves and
The waves, the motion of the ocean, because a ship rocks, it rolls. These things are on wheels. Does it sound like a good idea to have 1,000-pound iron cannons rolling this way and that below decks on a ship? No. In fact, one of the most dangerous things you can have in this point in time is something called a loose cannon.
Oh.
There you go, one more idiom for you folks. So, I think that's about all the technical things. Would you like to see the thing fire?
Yes.
Alright, so, do you see that Brindley Brown building up there? In the back there through the gun hole? That, folks, is the Holiday Inn.
Woo!
Who here's staying at the Holiday Inn? Fantastic. If you are, we're about to give you a balcony. So, that hotel... Alright, so that hotel stands at 750 yards away. That is half this cannon's range. We can hit that thing all day long, and in fact we can hit up to 1,500 yards away. That's near a mile. Now then, to load and fire this thing, this is my crew of 6 to 8 men. He'll do all right. He's going to handle his worm there, it's that corkscrew-looking thing, and he's going to search the piece, making sure there's no debris in there from the last shot we fired. Nothing. He's going to then handle his ramrod, that's that thing there, and he's going to spring rammer. Hear that bell tone, folks?
Yeah.
That means the piece is packed, the piece is clear, we're ready to go. As next bit, hold my thumb over the touch hole, because I don't want any air moving on there on the inside, because what does a spark need to start a fire?
Air.
Air, oxygen. We don't want to blow my gunner's hand off to the Holiday Inn, now do we? So, he's going to pack and charge the piece. Hear that bell tone again, folks? That means the piece is packed, we're ready to go. Now then, this here is my gunner's pick. I'm gonna do this here. What don't you folks see? Sparks, very good. This is an iron pick. That's a bronze gun. You can't make sparks off 2 different metals. So, I'm gonna pierce the charge like that. Alright, Do you see that black powder there in my hand, folks?
Mm.
That means we've struck pay dirt, we're ready to fire. Now then, my gunner here. Oh, wait, I'm going to hit myself. Damn, he's drawn. So this next part would have normally been accomplished with a goose quill, but geese are mean. So instead, we're using this much more historically accurate paper straw filled with gunpowder. So, put this here, and this job I'm doing here is with a pair of scissors. This job I'm doing here would have normally been done by a class of people much different from me, in fact, much shorter than me. Now, around Europe, and in fact around the world, these people don't enjoy very many rights at this period of time. It's only right about now, in the time period we're living in today, that we've really started getting to know what these people
Turn it around.
We've really started to know what these people need to function in a society. Now, back in those days, they would have used a much more rude term to refer to them, but today we, of course, more politely call these people children. Now, you might be wondering, well, how did the British Army acquire these children? Well, something like this. Let's see. You there, sir. How much for that one? Is he causing trouble at home? Maybe not doing his chores?
$100.
$100? That's far too much. There you go, young man. There's a shilling. That's how much you're worth. If for some reason we were to find a parent not willing to sell their children to a life in the military, we'd then go to the local orphanage. No one's going to miss them now, are they? So, you, young man, as a powder monkey in His Majesty's Navy, they're going to call you that because you can run around like a monkey around the ship, getting into spaces that a grown man can't. And because you're about half the size of the man, it means you need about half the food, right? Perfect, so we don't need to feed you as much either. So these powder monkeys, if they survive to the age of 16 without losing any of their digits or their limbs, they then become a redcoat in His Majesty's army, such as myself. That's another decade for a chance for you to lose your limbs. So, eventually Britain does put it together that putting the youth of your nation on the front lines for war on His Majesty's ships is probably a bad idea. So we're going to put those children back where they belong, in mines and factories. So, alright. So, while I've been talking, my gunner here secured his linstock. That's a fancy Dutch word for matchstick. That's designed so that he can light that cannon without being taken off at the garters. So, he's loaded there with just regular old rope, but back in the day it would have been loaded with something called slow match. That's exactly what it sounds like, match that burns slow. You take hemp rope, soak it in a solution of saltpeter and water, then let it dry overnight, it turns into that slow match. It's great for when you have to run around and fire these cannons constantly when you're at war with France. But much to my chagrin, we are no longer at war with France. We are instead at war with the Holiday Inn at the top of every other hour. So, that being said, there's 3 basic commands to get this thing fired. The first one is take care. These gun crews are made up of 16-year-olds. Do you think they're listening too much? No, so that first one's just old-timey speak for listen up, you knuckleheads. The second one is make ready. That's when my gunner's actually going to light his linstock. And then finally what, folks? Fire. Give fire. Very good. Alright, so that's take care, make ready, give fire. Do you think you got that? Alright, so I'm going to warn you folks, get a bit of a range of volumes with this cannon. Sometimes we do get setting off car alarms, which is always our goal, or we get something a little more akin to Uncle Jerry saying, pull my finger at Thanksgiving. So, you might want to cover your ears, or if you're filming, just open your mouth a little bit, equalizes the pressure in your area. So, are you ready, folks?
Alright.
Are you ready, Gunner? Apparently he's a horse. Right. Take care. Make ready. And give fire. All right. Let's give our gunner a hand, folks. So, large boom, wasn't it, folks? One of the most common questions we get is, well, didn't these cannon crews ever go deaf? Which our response is,
What?
what? Yes, these cannon crews went deaf, in fact almost exclusively. And I'll tell you this, folks, to fire a cannon you need 2 pounds of gunpowder. That was 2 ounces. So imagine about 30 times that in the explosion. So, these cannon crews went deaf. It was not a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And it got to be such a problem that if you were an artilleryman and you came home from war deaf, you could go all the way up to Buckingham Palace in London and King George would hand you a permit. And that permit said you could go back home to London, Manchester, Leeds, wherever you're from, and you could sit on the streets and be a beggar without being arrested for vagrancy. And that's the first instance of military benefits. Oh no, not really. But that, folks, concludes your tour and our artillery demonstration here at Fort William Henry. Hope you had a fantastic time and we hope you enjoy Lake George.